So thank you so much, Luke, for joining us. Dr. Kanchan, for staying back. You had your session at 11 in the morning, and thank you so much for being there. I remember, Luke, it was October of 2021 when I was, Dr. Batra invited me from an audience. I was an invitee by Business World at that time to come and felicitate Luke. And next thing I know is 15 days later, I became a part of Business World. And today it's my privilege and pride to have you here for us, for our Business World Healthcare magazine that we have been, launching. And Dr. Kanchan, thank you so much. You've been a friend of Business World for a while, and mine before that. Though it was a very funny incident, I did her interview, and I, sometimes joke about it. My closeness to Dr. Kanchan was because I took her 2-hour interview and I forgot to switch on the record button of my camera.
At the end of 2 hours, he goes, oops, I forgot to.
But that gave me an opportunity to do another round of 2 hours interview, and we became, the friends. So thank you so much for, all that you do for Business World. I have my set of questions ready, but, I don't want to get into this panel discussion. I would rather take this opportunity that since all of you are here, you had a day which is full of serious conversations. If you have any questions, I would want you to ask Luke or Dr. Kanchan. So if you have any questions, the first opportunity will be to you. Anyone with questions? Yeah. So this is the other way around. Typically, we have a panel discussion, then we open it to the round for questions. But let's, I think it's better to, yes, please.
Yeah, my question, Dr. Nitin here from Manipal, Bangalore. My question to Luke is, I think most often, and I'm sure Dr. Kanchan and others would have encountered this, the first question a patient asks a doctor is, doctor, what should I start eating or what should I stop eating, right? So my question to you, and it's, and you're probably the best person to answer this, is A, how do you think the medical field should be made more aware about the impact of nutrition, not just in oncology, but in sort of curriculum as such? Because, Siddharth Mukherjee does a lot of research, and he says ketogenic diet can help in downgrading breast cancer, but it can accelerate leukemia in mouse models. So there's a lot of conflicting literature on nutrition itself at the scientific level. How can we as doctors access more information, accurate information about nutrition to guide our patients? And second, very simply is, how can patients and support groups, since the topic is about support groups, find the right resources to guide patients about lifestyle during oncology treatment?
So I think it all starts from the base. If you leave it to people to go into, scientific research studies, like a lot of our patients say, hey, Luke, I went onto PubMD or NCBI and I found this article. But it doesn't mean the research may be right. They miss the fact that it's only done on mice and not yet on human beings. So, the point is it may be not accurate. And that's where critical thinking comes in. Like when a patient comes and, is diagnosed with cancer and they come to us, the idea is not to scare them off. Of course, we don't like refined sugar in the body. First is common sense and then is science. Do we allow our children to eat sugar? We tell them, no, don't eat sugar. We don't give sugar to the human body because it makes you sick. So why would you give an already sick body sugar? We go back to how PET scans work and the uptake of glucose and the Krebs cycle, and clearly it's not the best food to eat. You want foods that your mitochondria can use, make real energy, no excess residual free radicals in the human body. So we coach them off the foods that are bad. The number one thing that we also tell our patients is, of course, putting more nutritious food based on your condition. You're absolutely right. Ketogenic diets are great for certain cancers, but not for all of them. So a lot of patients are like, I'm going onto a raw food diet because they've read about it. So what are the credible sources? We believe that the curriculum in medical school needs a lot of revamp. And the curriculum in normal nutritional school also needs a revamp, because all of it is stuck on long-term information which hasn't changed, but disease has changed. Metabolic disease has changed and evolved over the years, but RDAs in nutrition really haven't changed that much. So today we have the whole concept of, is saturated fat good or bad? So at one point it was the worst. Today it's encouraged to eat saturated fats, which are good in quality. So when we advise people, we always say go to experts who are scientifically based, which is number one, doctors, nutritionists who practice with the right scientific information, not 10 Google foods that can help you with cancer, hair loss, and stuff like that. Because like I said, there are foods which are highly anti-angiogenic. We know the classical chemo drug for Avastin. What is it based on? Angiogenesis, right? But it shuts down angiogenesis so harshly that we know the side effects is going to be cardiac arrest and stuff like that. But we also know that there are several foods which are highly anti-angiogenic as well, like pomegranate, green tea, black coffee. It's not a replacement for Avastin, but you get what I mean. They're functional foods. Dark chocolate, raw cacao, certain legumes, certain oils. All of these are documented, scientifically researched. There's a doctor, Dr. Lee Williams. He's at Harvard, he's a physician, and he's a nutritionist. You should explore his work. And you will see how every disease is categorized according to stem cell, DNA, immunity, microbiome, or angiogenesis. Now that you know that every cancer is an angiogenesis, my food choices are based on anti-angiogenic, which means I can circle down my options of what I need to eat, not listen to every aunt or uncle who says, oh, you should do this, you should do that. No, there's a scientific approach. So in our country, across the world, because there's an overload of content, you need to go to experts who make sense. And as an audience, we need to understand, does this make sense to me? I'm eating raw, but I'm getting bloated. I'm eating raw, but I'm not supposed to eat raw when I'm going through chemo because of possible infection. So I think critical thinking is also very, very important, and a combination of the right information has to go between. So with the IMA, which is the Indian Medical Association, we are working very closely with them on a curriculum for doctors and oncologists with this kind of new, way of eating and living and nutrition, and we're hoping it reaches across the medical society so doctors can also learn and integrate it into their own practice. So that's how you do it. But we can't say sugar causes cancer, but we can say it increases metabolic uptake in the body, which is why we tell diabetics not to eat sugar, right? So it's a fine line between scaring a patient or coaching them into eating the right foods. So that's how we look at it.
So, if you are going to introduce that in the medical curriculum, I'd like to go back into MBBS all over again. Because for the simple reason, as a cancer doctor who sits there thinking, I know it all, and the first question the patient asks us is not about the treatment we are going to give them, is about what should I eat and what should I not eat. And I stand here and honestly tell you, with my hand on my heart, as allopaths, we are not taught that. We are seriously not taught that. I remember 13 years ago, I was at a conference and somebody stood up in the audience and asked me something about vitamin K7. I didn't even know what it was because it was not in my textbooks when I was reading about vitamins. So I think, an all-round focus is needed, but also a word of caution here. Because I think in the world of nutrition, there are too many quacks who are cropping up. And there is too much out there on the internet which is misleading. And it is not easy to find an expert like yourself, because if we have to look at treatment as allopaths, we have to move beyond what we do medically to understand that it is food and nutrition which builds the body, and that is why disease cannot be taken care of unless this is taken care of. But it cannot happen unless we have integrated treatment centers. And I think that is very, very important. And that discussion needs to be had more often.
So doctor, thank you for that. So what we've done is we've taken a step forward, and we have now started teaching nutrition, okay, adding to nutrition the integrative part, because it's lacking. It's not just that doctors don't know it, nutritionists also don't know it. So the point is, there's really no one to blame. It's just that things have been stuck, but we're adding those subjects now into nutritional colleges. And I think Mumbai University, Bangalore, Pune University have embraced it into their MSc programs, now going into their PhD programs. So it's not just about doctors, it's also, like you said, nutritionists and everyone who's just guessing and seeing an Instagram post and thinking it's great for them.
Yeah, and I think the word that you mentioned, in the end about every individual being different. So what worked for someone will not work for us. I mean, we are in a country where if I'm taking a BP medication and somebody in my house is, you know, detected with hypertension, I will tell them, "Mere liye ye dawai kaam karti hai, aap bhi le lo," you know. So then we definitely, you know, as a community need to talk about it, and definitely nutrition has to be, you know, if we look at ancient wisdom in India, you know, I tell everybody we forgot what our nani dadi used to say, and we are now looking at expert nutritionists to tell us what to have for breakfast, lunch and dinner. But when I hear from my mom what, you know, my nani used to feed her, it is what nutritionists are telling us nowadays. So I think two things have gone wrong in India. One, when food became an industry, it has completely taken away the nutrition aspect of it, the common sense aspect of it, and what we are feeding our kids. If a little kid is hungry, what do you give them? Kurkure and chips. That's a reward. They're not told take carrot sticks or eat cucumber. You know, that is actually, even we are at fault when it comes to that. So I think it's really, really important to understand that, and that is the only way that, you know, we can move forward then.
Absolutely, doctor. I love that you use the word common sense. A lot of people look at it as a very disrespectful or derogatory word because it makes you feel a little dumb. And most Indian kids at least remember our parents saying, "Don't you have common sense?" and stuff like that. But it is true. Yeah. We lack common sense hugely, hugely. And if we can just add that back, then that moves to critical thinking. That it is common sense that I don't feed a sick body junk food. It's common sense. You don't need a doctor or nutritionist to tell you. So we're also trying to revive common sense.
Thank you.
Lovely, lovely.
I think that's really needed.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful conversation. Any other question that anyone in the audience has? Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask? I'm Dr. Anita Rajoria. I'm a gynecologist from Delhi. I lost my mother because of breast cancer. So as I read from this thing that the panel is on role of support group. Ma'am, it's very good that we have support groups. But unfortunately, even doctors are not aware where to refer their patients for these support groups. There comes the role of media, sir. So
Absolutely.
I want you to...
I think it's very important, so I'll tell you. I trained as a breast cancer surgeon in the UK. In the UK, when you diagnose somebody with cancer, the first meeting that you have with the patient when you're breaking bad news, you cannot have that conversation unless you have a Macmillan cancer care nurse sitting in that room. So sometimes we waited till she was free for the patient to walk into our room. And what was the role of this nurse? That after I had finished giving that diagnosis, she would walk the patient out into a calm area where she would counsel the patient, make a list of tests need to be done, what you need to do. But when I came back to India and I realized I was all on my own, there was very little concept of support groups, and that's where Indian Cancer Society, and I see all the lovely ladies sitting in the audience, it's NGOs and groups like them who go from hospital to hospital, giving care for free, talking to patients for free. But the concept, like with nutrition, as doctors, I think we fail when we don't understand that just giving medicine is only a small part of what we are going to do. To emotionally carry the patient forward in the journey is extremely, extremely important. And I tell everybody, if I have learned anything outside of my textbook, sitting in my clinic, is the power of mind over body. I have seen patients with stage 4 disease who walk in and say that, "Doctor Sahab, aap kyun dar rahe ho? Main to theek ho jaungi," and they actually do well. And patients with early breast cancer who are scared from the word go, don't have the concept that yes, I can get better, not doing well. So support groups are the need of the hour, because you cannot expect in an Indian setting where clinics are already overburdened, where we do not have that much time to talk to our patients, because I've heard Josna Govilji say that only a little part of the cancer treatment happens in the hospital. Absolutely. A large part of it, the disease neither starts in the hospital, neither does it end there, right? So in the community, the role of support groups is huge, and in the hospital, the role of support groups is even more. But a word of caution there again. Whoever is running a support group does not have to fall for myths, because I see a lot of times there are mushrooming support groups that will actually misguide the patient. So I think it's very important for that to be done under the purview of the medical setting so that the doctor knows. So if I know if somebody from the ICS is going and talking to my patient, they're going to give them facts. But I worry if somebody who I don't know about, they're going to go and tell them things which may not be true. So definitely role of support
so
groups.
we'll request media to
you
bring
know,
it
I think
forth. Yeah.
this is an extremely important question, and I'll tell you why. You're right that media has a great responsibility to bring in the correct information. And you know, the correct information is very difficult to judge for us as media.
Right.
And which is why we as a media group have consciously built a team of people who are passionate about healthcare and not just because they can write well. Right. You know, that's one initiative that we have taken. The second is that we rely on people who are experts, and which is why, I mean, Luke knows that how many times have we reached out to him to give us information that we can put in our magazine. Dr. Kanchan knows, and a lot of us sitting here are focusing on this. But while you say that, there's another very important aspect that I want to bring up, and which is what my next question to Luke is. Look, we are responding to a lot of assumptions. And I was talking to a cancer patient just about a week ago, and I was asking, you know, what is it that you are going through? What are your questions? What are you dabbling with in your mind? You know, because a lot of us go to a cancer patient and tell them, you know, sab theek ho jayega, you know, look at the positive side, keep yourself positive. And there's this concept of toxic positivity. The person is inside thinking कि यार मेरे को पता नहीं मेरे साथ कल क्या होगा, and what are you talking of, think positive. So you have dealt with a lot of cancer patients, people who are dabbling with cancer, people who have survived cancer and are now living a journey with the help of people like you. What do you think goes on in their mind? Because unless we know what is happening inside of them, we are not able to provide the support.
Right, so it's not what we think, it's what we know, because our diagnosis can go on for 30 to 45 minutes because we want to know those questions. You know, so most people are battling with if they have children, what's going to happen to my children? They're going to a lot of people, newly married women, it's unbelievable, I know, but we got to say it today. They've just gotten married and they feel they're going to let down their mother-in-law because they got sick so early and they're not good enough for their son. This is a huge problem. They have other problems like of course, financial, who's going to pay my bills, what happens to me after death. There's the spiritual part because there's also a lot of spirituality fads in our country. You know, death is thrown around like, you know, whatever. So when we talk to people, there are just two ways. It's not based on emotion, it's not based on science, it's based on reality. There is destiny, which if we are going to die, we are going to die. We have no control over that. So we keep it in the corner because there's nothing you can do. And then when destiny is in the corner, now you have action points that you can take. Like, what medical tests do you need to get? Get your oncologist team. What's your support group? Do you need financial help? Put that together, action. When you're stuck without action, anxiety grows. When you move from acceptance to action, everything changes in the human body. So once we understand what's happening in their, we actually use a lot of their fears to inspire them. Oh, you have 2 kids. Okay, let's make sure this works. This is what you got to do. It's all about the mind. We make that their inspiration. Like you shared about the client with the strong mind. I had a mother the other day, and I was like, how are you so strong? She said, I got to do this. I got 2 kids. That's it. I know she's going to be fine. I know she's going to be fine. And I had a young girl in Mumbai, 39 years old, endometrial cancer, spread to the ovaries. And her problems were like, oh, Luke, you know, I can't stop drinking and vaping. What will my friends think of me? And all of that stuff. And at the end of the conversation, I said, so do you have 2 kids? Yeah, I got 2 daughters, 8 and 9. And I'm like, your priorities are completely... You see, 2 different mindsets. You can't blame any of them. You got to coach them. So one is worried about what society thinks. Someone else is worried about their kids. So cancer, you know, all of this comes with also coaching. It's not just giving them a nutritional plan. It's about helping them deal with this. You're not alone. And like you said, there are quacks who offer false hope to patients today. Oh, you have this particular oil and your cancer will go, or you do this. And that's crazy because there is no magic food, there's no magic chemo, there's no magic nothing. The immune system has to kick in for a patient to get better, period. That's how it is. So at the end of the day, coaching is also very, very important. So the more we know about what's happening in the patient, number one, they feel heard. They feel heard. So we had a 63-year-old lady, breast cancer, ER positive, and finally she broke down in the clinic crying. She's never told anyone in the world that she got raped at the age 4, and it continued to the age 12 by her own uncle. She's never spoken about it. That woman today, 9 years later, because we put her onto emotional counseling, suppressed emotion. She did chemotherapy, everything, but we also believe that that expression of that emotion that she's lived with. So you need to know what's going on in your patient's mind in order to, give a proper path. And that's where it comes. Doctors don't have the time to do that, and it's not wrong. They're symptomatically treating. And then you have everyone else who can come together. So like the ladies out here who are extending that support, I think that's powerful medicine. It's powerful medicine. It has to come together, but like you said, the right people.
And just very quickly also, you can offer the best counseling services, the best support groups. The patient and their family should be willing to accept it also. Yeah. Because a lot of times patients and their families, especially as Indians, we feel that as a family, the patient is at the back. They even shield the patient from the doctor. They don't even want the doctor talking to the patient about the diagnosis. So support services and counseling services can work only if they're taken with an open mind and the family allows the patient that space to talk her mind out.
So Dr. Kanchan,
and that is my biggest pet peeve. And in India, sadly, the caregiver suffers sometimes more than the carer.
Ms. Govil, can somebody give the mic to her, please?
Thank you. I want to share what I hear constantly from Kanchan's patients. And that is that she's one doctor who gets out of her seat and goes and gives the patient a hug. I think she's giving the best medicine of all. It's not the chemo. So thank you, Kanchan. I just wanted to acknowledge that. The other thing I would like to add, Harbinder, I know I talk a lot, but just very briefly, patients can talk to a stranger much more openly than they would to their own families. They will not share their worries, their financial fears, their fear for their own lives. But when they talk to us, they open their hearts, if we do it right. And we know when we are doing it right because it all comes pouring out. When we are not doing it right, then it's a very formal conversation, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Govil. I think that is a very powerful thing that you brought out. In fact, that is my next question to you, Dr. Kanchan. You're dealing with breast cancer patients. And what I heard when I interviewed you for the first time was that the fears of these women who are diagnosed with breast cancer are not just about the disease. It is about the worries related to after the cure and losing their breast, etc. Can you share with us what are the kind of fears that you encounter people opening up with, and what is it that you as a practitioner are doing beyond the medical care to comfort these patients and their families, in fact?
So yeah, see, everybody is different, like he said. For somebody, smoking and vaping and being accepted in the society. Again, मेरी भी आवाज़ बुलंद है, नहीं? Hello, yeah. So all of us are wired differently, isn't it? So somebody's concern might be different and the other person's concern might be different. And I think when you sit in clinic for so many years and deal with all sorts of women from different strata of society, when you start talking to them, you just know. I think any good clinician who spends time with their patients sometimes doesn't even need the patient to tell you what they're going through or what they're feeling. You just see it in their face, you see it in their body language. In India, the biggest fear the word cancer brings with it is not about the disease, and I say it very often. It is more about the treatments. Why? Because chemotherapy will cause me to lose my hair. If we see young women with breast cancer, which sadly in India we see a lot, the parents will not ask us, "Hamari beti bach jayegi." The first question they ask is, "Iski shaadi hogi, iske bacche honge." So everybody comes with different fears. And that is why we definitely need, so we can do all that we can, whatever time my patient spends with me in clinic. Of course, I do that. I have a WhatsApp group with patients who want to join, and they can message at all odd times, and I do get back to them. That is the little that I do. But we definitely need established counselors. We definitely need trained people, because counseling in itself is best done by somebody who's trained to do it. You know, as a doctor, again, as part of my curriculum, I wasn't taught that. You learn it on the job. And if you deal with a disease like cancer, you definitely learn it on the job. But I may not be equipped well enough. And that is why the role of integrative care, where you have trained counselors counseling your patients, is very, very important. I can't say I'm the best and I'm counseling my patient in the best way. I may not be. So I think that's really, really important.
So, you know, you use the word integrative care. Look, you know, in your experience, what have you observed? Because Dr. Nitin from Manipal was telling me that, you know, some of his patients have actually come to you for help, and he's seen a lot of difference that you have been able to make in their life. But when you're looking at integrative care, it's just not the medicine. You know, just food will not help a person live a healthier life. We've seen that it is not just the longevity of your life, but even the quality of life that you lead during that extended life that you have been blessed with. In your opinion, what is that lifestyle management that happens that can help a person lead a better quality of life despite having cancer or having survived cancer?
So we look at 4 pillars, which are the fundamentals of anatomy, disease, everything. One is nutrition. One is movement or exercise. I like to use the word movement because people think exercise is only a gym, and a lot of people don't like that. Movement, sleep quality, not quantity, and of course emotional stress. And of course there's the 5th pillar, which is the spirit, which is the 4 models are working well, because there are a lot of people who are so distant from their spirit. They're in disharmony all the time, and we know when you're in disharmony, you're not in homeostasis, again anatomically. So when we look at patients, if I had to put at the top of the paradigm today, people would think I would say nutrition. It isn't. I put sleep and emotional health first. I'll tell you why. Because if you're sleep deprived, there is no way you can eat the right way. Your body is going to crave for carbohydrates, sugar. It's not going to crave for healthy food. If you're emotionally stressed, you can't sleep. So you see, it's a vicious cycle that builds. If I can't sleep and I'm emotionally stressed, where am I spending more time? In the sympathetic nervous system. Then comes your exercise and your nutrition. So when you break down these pillars, that's the lifestyle model. We allow the doctors to do what they do. That's their expertise, completely. So doctors today tell us, hey, Luke, this guy's going to be on palliative care from now. So we know palliative means there's only one thing. How do we improve the quality of life? Least suffering. So we're not going to say stop painkillers. We're going to see what can we do to make it better. And that's beautiful. We have oncologists today around the world working with us for that. And it's distinct. You can see the quality of the patient. It's no one who's better than one another. It's what the patient's getting. And of course, family makes a big difference. It's imagine we have patients who want to stay in the hospital. They don't want to go back home because the environment at home is so toxic, they can't heal at home. So there are so many things that are involved. But the lifestyle model revolves around these pillars, whether we have disease or we have disease.
So, you know, I think we are talking about all of this in the context of a diagnosed patient and treating them and making their life better. But you know, when you spoke about taking it back to the curriculum in medical schools, I think we should take a few steps back even from that and go down to schools. Yeah. What are we teaching our young kids? They are becoming so emotionally deprived and suppressed because of the false lives their friends are leading on social media, isn't it? Which kid is sleeping in time nowadays, right? They've got their blue light on, they've got their phones on, they've got their mobiles on. And I think if this continues, a decade down the line, we will have major problems related to health because of this emotional intelligence going down, because of sleep deprivation, because of all wrong habits. So I think when we talk, you know, as doctors and as integrative healers, I think we have to go down to the root, because if you're going to talk of preventive health care, it has to start young. And I think our kids nowadays of this generation have lost touch with that. At least we still saw what our Nani Dadi did. They are not going to even see that. So I think that's really, really important.
It's a great point.
Do we have any question? Because I've got a last question to ask Luke, but before that, if you have any questions, please let me know. So, Luke, you know, one is a support group has a responsibility. Sorry, somebody has a question? Yeah, please, ma'am, we'll give you that opportunity first.
Sir, I would rather say not a question, but a feedback on Luke, sir. I am not a doctor, I am not a medical practitioner, but I am a nutritionist. I'm a practicing dietitian. And I would say I thanks from the bottom of my heart. My heart is actually beating so fast to just thank Luke, sir, that I have been under his guidance by following his just only the Facebook and Insta pages. I have learned a lot. And I would be like, I have no words. I would be rather become a student of yours for life to basically serve the community. So it's just a thank note rather than a question that you are in yourself an idol for all of us. Thank you so much, sir.
And I second that. I second that.
Thank you.
So that's it, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Take a deep breath. Let your heart rate come down a bit. Yeah.
So, Luke, before I come to my question, I want to ask you, since the lady brought this up, and she said she's been following you on Instagram, how important is social media vanity for people who are into nutrition? And, you know, is it the need of the hour? Or is it actually because, you know, is this a vehicle to reach out and make a difference to a larger population? How do you see social media for people in this profession?
See, social media has never been the problem. It's the person using social media. Intention is everything. I use social media to educate people. I can reach out to millions of people with the right content, with the right science. And then there are accounts that, like ma'am rightly said, have the wrong information and confuse. It's how we use the tool. What intention? Every message I put up, what's my intention? What am I doing? Am I doing it for validation? Am I doing it for approval? Or am I doing it because I want someone to pick up that one little thing and make a difference? If it works, it's the way we use the platform. But social media can be a boon and it can be extremely destructive. So that's how it is, yeah.
Right. So my question to you, Luke, was that when you're looking at support groups, is it only the patients that need support? Or is it the caregiver? Because I'm specifically asking you this question because what happens when there's a child who is dabbling with cancer? How do we provide the right support to the parents? Because, you know, they're broken. They don't know what to do. It's expensive. They don't know the future of that child in most cases. And they don't know how to handle the child as well as handle the spouse or to handle their parents, the grandparents. So what is the best way to manage the family of the patient?
So again, it's very complicated because there are different reasons and different, like in India, a lot of people will not share. They'll tell the kids, don't speak about this outside. No one outside our apartment should know that mommy got cancer. Okay, no one should know this. It's a taboo. It's like it reflects poorly. It's very dynamic in our country. In the US, if you see, it's a lot more open because they have the support groups that doctor mentioned about from the time you're diagnosed. We don't have that right now. But I'm very proud to announce that very soon we've been working with Stanford Care in the US, and we're coming up with a specific module, which is going to be, of course, free of cost for caregivers first, to understand how they need to fill their cup before they fill other people. Because a lot of them get very, very sick in the process of giving, 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 and giving. A lot of people pleasers, you know, enter into the space of caregivers with their qualifications because they just feel good about what they're doing, but they don't fill their cup. And this is scientifically studied. So very soon we're going to have a program, I think it's called Compassion and Care for Caregivers, Patients, and the Family. So this is going to be a module, self-paced, where people can learn how to put themselves into a situation that they're in and now select which is the best way that will suit me rather than, you know, someone preaching to them that do this or don't do that. Because you have to allow people, empower them to make decisions based on the dynamics of their family and disease. So I hope that should be out in about 2.5 months from now. And we're hoping that can make a change for people. And we're hoping that support groups can also embrace that. I know they're doing it in their own way. And, embrace whatever's been put together by Stanford and us and hopefully make an impact.
I think this is extremely important because I lost my mother to cancer, and there was a time when the doctors asked me that I think it's in the best interest for the patient to let her go. Yeah. And it was a very tough choice for a son to choose to give permission to let the mother pass away. So I think it is extremely important of how the caregivers need to be handled. You have a point.
So I think definitely a lot needs to be done in this space, because in the Western world, the government formally supports caregivers. So yes, there's the emotional, support they need, and there's the financial. But then if you look at it, caregivers in the West get tax breaks. They get leaves, they get more leaves than you can normally get. Also in the UK, if a caregiver has to take, say, their relative to the hospital and he doesn't have a car, they'd be provided even that. You don't have a mobile phone to communicate, you'd even be provided that. So I think when you talk about caregivers, the patient is primarily undergoing medical treatment and needs the emotional support, but the caregiver needs way much more than that. So I think that has to come.
This is brilliant. We have time for one more question, because while the screen there shows time's up, I've been going on because I don't get to have Luke sitting here all the time. But I have my eyes are on his watch. I know you have a 6:30 meeting. Yeah, so we have 5 minutes to go. One more question. Yeah, Dr. Nitin.
Push government and legislative bodies or the insurance bodies that this is important because it is cost effective. We have the science that good nutrition helps in decreasing relapse rate or plays some part in decreasing relapse rate. So it's actually good for the insurance company if the patient doesn't relapse as well. So why isn't integrative or supportive medicine, be it psychological counseling, nutrition or whatever, come under the insurance policy package? And the second thing, again, which I would request the Indian Cancer Society and all of us as oncologists and people who are stakeholders is this: if someone is a childhood cancer survivor, his insurance premium is skyrocketing, that sometimes they can't disclose or sometimes they are even let out. And we all talk about increased coverage of insurance, accessibility and all, but we are dealing with a stark reality that cancer survivors are being discriminated in insurance policies. And this is a very serious matter that through the media we need to push policyholders for.
I totally agree with you, Dr. Nitin. In fact, my views on this are that we as a media house need to bring this up. And there's a dichotomy when you're looking at the data sharing that is being encouraged today in healthcare. There's the challenge that I have heard people who are not willing to give permission to for their data to be shared is that ये अगर insurance company के पास चला गया तो मेरा insurance का बढ़ जाएगा. But it's a very important issue because it is in the interest of the insurance companies to have people go in for preventive screening, right? Because that is the only way that they can reduce their payout burden. But it works contrary to their revenue predictions, the business model, because they're earning their money from the insurance premium that they get. So I'm willing to take it up as business world, as an advocacy, with the right set of people to come on board to take this up and have a discussion with the government. Dr. Urvashi was here. In fact, Dr. Kanchan and I were speaking to her about this, and we've asked her that if she could allow us to bring this up and help being the conduit to help get this information reach out to the right people. But what are your views, Luke and Dr. Kanchan, because you are dealing with people who are facing a problem. You have met people, in fact, that's the reason you brought it up, that the issues are not related to the disease. The challenges could be finances, the challenges could be kids, the worries around them. What is your personal view on this?
No, I completely agree with what Doctor said. It has to be done. Unfortunately, I've chosen in my path of work and with what I have to focus on my patient. If you try to tread into that line, it's emotionally draining, bandwidth, and it's not my expertise. So I'm hoping that the people who have the ability to take that forward will, because we have the same issue, not just in India, but in the US. It's out of insurance pocket expense, which is huge when people want to be treated out of their medical insurance. So it limits them. They're like, we won't do it anymore. So I'm really hoping that we come together and look at what can be done. Because there's a lot of politics involved. I'm going to say it up front right now. It's at the end of the day about revenue and what makes sense for a lot of verticals. So I believe in life when there's no intention to make a change from that, it has to be done collectively, because if someone doesn't want to do it, it's resistance for everyone else who's trying to do it. So I don't have the expertise to take that forward, but I'm happy to be a voice wherever required.
And considering that majority of private healthcare in India is out-of-pocket expense, because majority of Indians do not have insurance.
Great.
A request that when you launch your program 2.5 months from now, can we do it in such a way that our group of emotional support givers in ICS are directly involved with it?
We can. It's not my decision alone. It has Stanford involved, but we can make it work.
Because I think that will make a big difference. Yeah. And of course, I am very, very sure that Dr. Kanchan Kaur will be with us. And we'll have a session separately with you only on this, because you can teach us a lot of this.
Okay, we can try to make
it
work.
Yeah. So,
yes, absolutely.
Great. So, I'd like to end the session here. Is there something that you want to speak? Share something?
No, I'm good.
Yes, sir.
Duke said, just starting his seminar, about nature and sunshine. The most important part is that, before is that quality sleep, you said.
Yes, quality sleep, yeah.
Yes. And it's too many stress and too hectic life. How you make quality life? Please, you explain.
Okay. So you're saying when there's too much of stress,
yes,
how do you make?
Quality sleep.
Quality sleep. So sleep is about moving from sympathetic to parasympathetic. There are many ways to move from sympathetic to parasympathetic. Number one, let's say you have a lot of stress and a lot of thoughts, but half an hour before bed, okay, you need to start to quiet down the mind. So for that, our own culture teaches us yoga, pranayam, meditation, reflection, which automatically moves you. You can move from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system in less than a minute by only changing the way you breathe. When your exhale becomes longer than your inhale, let's say my inhale is 4 seconds, and I make my exhale 8 seconds, for example, or it could be 3 seconds, 6 seconds. You automatically stimulate vagal tone, which moves you from sympathetic to parasympathetic. That's why in the practice of yoga, there is asana, there is then pranayam, which is breath, and then meditation. It leads you into an easier way to do meditation, because you can't say, I'm stressed, let's sit for meditation. You move into it. So there are many things that you can do. Number two, a lot of people are stressed about the next day. Write down, before you sleep, everything that you need to do the next day. So you're literally emptying your mind onto a piece of paper. It's called journaling. So now that you've emptied it out, you can sleep. The mind is a little more quiet. Number three, phones and gadgets before actually creates stress, because it suppresses, blue light suppresses melatonin. So now you're trying to sleep, you know sleep is important, but you don't have the main hormone that creates or drives the body into deep sleep, which is melatonin. So there are all of these things that need to be done, because stress is real. Everyone's going to have it, and if you don't have it now, you can't have it later. It's how we manage that. And if I can add one more point on stress, most people don't have stress. It's also a very mindlessly used word. Most people have something, someone, or an event that they're resisting. It is in your resistance that your inner peace is spoiled. And that becomes stress, turmoil, and chaos. So everyone just think about any stress that you have in your life. What is the resistance that you have with that? So it's all of these things. The body has to be prepared to sleep. Darkness, you cannot sleep with bright light. The darker it is, the more melatonin you produce. And coming back to sunlight, the first 10 to 15 minutes of sunshine that you get in a day resets your circadian rhythm for the nighttime sleep that you get at night. And I can guarantee you this. Anyone who's finding it difficult to sleep, start getting sunshine in the morning and just observe how the quality of your sleep will change. Let's say you didn't get sunshine today. What's my next hack? Light a candle before bed, okay, 30 minutes. Just look at the flame. A candlelight gives you long wave infrared, which can produce more melatonin, which is why candlelight, campfire is very soothing to the body. You feel very relaxed. All of these things have existed in our ancient India. We're just trying to bring it back. It's based on science, simple science. So it's about how do I reduce the chatter in my mind. Now you may think, oh, I'm busy, I can't do it. Yes, you can. There are ways. And you start off small and you be consistent with the small things. But everyone's going to try, everyone says, let me meditate for 1 hour. But you don't need to meditate for 1 hour. If you meditate deeply for 5 to 10 minutes, that's also good enough. It's a great start. So you got to break it down. But you need to be in the parasympathetic nervous system if you want to have the most beautiful, deepest sleep.
And last question is that, it's a part of neuro-linguistic programming training you told us, no? Please you tell me which course you have done previous that, no?
For yoga?
No, which course you had done for this thing now?
So I did nutrition and I did integrative and lifestyle medicine with the American College of Lifestyle Medicine.
That's very great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this question and lovely answer. Thank you for explaining because this was something important for us to know. And with this, we come to an end. Thank you so much, Luke. Special gratitude to him. He flew down from Bombay, came in yesterday, especially for this event. So I can't thank you enough, Luke, for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Kanchan. She's always taken out time to be with us and create valuable conversations for our audience. Thank you so much.